And I love Rasheed. How can he talk about Mike being an overrated defender when Mike won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same year? When Mike was first team all defense, 10 years in the league, a whole decade. How can you be overrated when you watch the film of Mike and Mike was locking dudes up full court?
How you gonna disagree with Rasheed? He been in between the lines.
He cool. No, I didn't say that.
He was out there.
Hold on. I'm gonna say
putting in that work, putting in that blood, sweat, and tears.
You guys like to misinterpret what I said. I didn't say that because they in the NBA they're right. I said when you played in between the lines in that type of situation, I respect your commentary more. That don't mean I have to agree with everything you say. Gilbert Arenas sit up here and say Doc Rivers is a bad coach, but he never won a championship. So how am I listening to somebody who never won a championship as who can criticize a coach who has?
I'm trying to figure out what the logic is when you talk about overrated. Overrated compared to what? What are we talking about when we say
how people view him?
Okay, so how I think Jordan, I mean, in terms of a defender, at the two guard position, I think he's the best two guard defender in NBA history. I don't think that there's anybody better than him at the two guard.
Sidney Moncrief.
I think he was better. I think he was a better defender than
overrated. There we go. See, that's why overrated.
Okay, so
when you think he's better than Kawhi Leonard at his best,
I do think he's better than Kawhi Leonard as a defender. I think he was a better off-ball defender than Kawhi Leonard. I think he was a better shot blocker than Kawhi Leonard. Mm-hmm. I think he was a better on-ball defender than Kawhi Leonard too. And you and I, Mark, you and I have had this conversation. So you think Kawhi Leonard is a better defender than Michael Jordan? I think Kawhi Leonard. I think you overrate Kawhi Leonard. So I can't understand it from that aspect. But to say that Jordan is overrated as a defender from Rasheed Wallace, but to actually sit down and watch Jordan, the fundamentals that he has, to sit down and get in the stance, to get his hands busy, to get his feet moving, to beat guys to spots, to be able to anticipate where a guy is going to be, to be able to help weak side when a guy doesn't have the ball, to get blocks on big guys and no spots like that, to know stuff like that. That takes a lot from a wing defender, and Jordan was fantastic at that. I don't think that he was overrated as a defender.
How many people won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award the same year?
Jordan did it, Giannis did it, and Olajuwon did it.
Olajuwon probably the only one who deserved it.
Yeah, what does that prove?
Proves that the world, the fans, and the media love Michael Jordan.
No, it doesn't prove that. It just proves that because his numbers backed it up too, Bob. It wasn't like it was a popular vote. His numbers backed it up. Like if you go look at his numbers defensively all the way across the board, Michael Jordan's numbers like passed the test. If you put his defensive numbers up against Kawhi's and all these other guys, his numbers was right there on par. And his
how many defensive player of the year how many defensive player of the years does Scotty have?
Zero.
None.
Okay. All right.
Well, because because when Scotty came along at that time, it was a lot more better defenders in the league than Scotty.
Like who? Who was a better
Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, Hakeem Olajuwon,
David Robinson. All them dudes was better defenders than Scotty. Dennis Rodman.
Hey, look, Scotty was a beast. Bob, Bob, you don't think Hakeem was a better defender than Scottie Pippen?
If Hakeem Olajuwon won it every single year, then I'll be with you.
No, I asked you. I'm talking about, do you think Hakeem in his prime was a better defender than
Scottie Pippen? He's the only one.
Okay, so I'm talking about, you don't think Alonzo Mourning was a better defender than Scottie Pippen?
No, I don't.
Alonzo Mourning?
No, I don't. No, I do not.
Scottie Pippen is not. Hold on. Scottie Pippen at that time was not a better defensive player. Who was winning the Defensive Player of the Year awards that time, Chilltown? That Scottie was in the league.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
He wasn't better than Hakeem. He wasn't better than David Robinson defensively.
Mutombo.
Why are you lying, bro? Why would you wake up and just? Why would you just wake up to lie?
Gary Payton won it.
He's better than Gary Payton defensively, Bob.
Yes. Why would you just wake up to lie?
I wish I could come through the screen right now, man.
I wish you
could. Was Michael Jordan better than Hakeem defensively?
That's up in the air because they did different
things.
That's up in the air. I would say no. Listen. I said I would say no. It's up in the air because of how different they were. But I would put
You're a liar, bro. Now you are a certified liar.
Over Mike. Excuse me. I said I would put Hakeem over Mike defensively. But what I'm saying to you is this. I'm saying that this man just sat up here and said that
stop playing.
Scottie Pippen is a better defensive player than the glove Gary Payton, man.
Yeah, it's different because they do different things defensively. So I guess it's up in the air. It's up in the air. They do different things. So
the thing here's the thing, Mars. What I don't do is I value being the defensive player of the year. 100% I value that. But That's not solely what the case is. And the reason why is because there's other guys who are playing at that level. Are you going to tell me that Tim Duncan, who never won Defensive Player of the Year, isn't worthy of being the best defensive player in the game? I mean, he was coming in second to Ben Wallace, and he was coming in second to Kevin Garnett. Is he just as good a defender as those guys? Absolutely. But the fact that Ben Wallace won the Defensive Player of the Year, does that mean that he's better than Tim Duncan? In some aspects, maybe in that one season. But if we're going to do that, then guess what's going to happen? Rudy Gobert is going to win the Defensive Player of the Year this year for the 4th time in 7 years. Are we going to have to now start talking about Rudy Gobert in the same conversation with guys like Olajuwon, Bill Russell? Are we going to have to start doing that because he won the Defensive Player of the Year? Are we going to have to start doing that?
This soft, so it's different. You just don't count the Defensive Player of the Years in this area. It doesn't count. But the Defensive Player of the Years in the past, I mean, yeah, it has to matter because MJ won Defensive Player of the Year, and that's why Rasheed Wallace is wrong because he won it.
No, I didn't say that. I said pull up the numbers, though, Mars.
What numbers?
What I was saying.
What numbers? What numbers?
Michael Jordan's defensive numbers compared him to Kawhi.
What's defensive numbers? What's defensive numbers? Like, tell me what
percentage, the opponent's field goal percentage when he's guarding them.
That number doesn't even exist when MJ plays. That number doesn't even exist.
Hold on one second. Didn't Michael Jordan lead the league in steals?
The number stop playing.
The opponent defensive field goal percentage doesn't even exist when MJ
Michael Jordan lead the league in steals.
Yes, MJ's led the league in steals.
What place was the Bulls in defensively those years that Michael Jordan was winning championships?
Oh, the years you were top 5, definitely.
Yeah. Right. So he had a big.
Okay, who else was on those teams?
Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Horace Grant was an all-league defender. He was playing at an all-league defender. Phil Jackson was coaching those teams.
Okay, so why are we giving Michael Jordan the credit for the Bulls being that high ranked defensively when we can see what else was around him?
Well, we can't give him sole credit, but he had a lot to do with it. No question about that.
I'm fine with that, but when we say defensive numbers, if we're going to say, well, MJ's team defensive rating is better than Kawhi's, sure. The league defensive rating in the 90s is better than the league defensive rating today. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Kawhi's defensive rating would be higher than MJ's. Of course. That's common sense. That's just how the game works. In the 2000s, the defensive ratings all around the league were lower because the league offenses were worse. Does that mean all the best defenders of all time played in the 2000s?
No.
But if you just use defensive rating to try and prove who the better defender is, yes, that's what it's going to look like. You're going to see Ben Wallace. You're going to see Tim Duncan. You're going to see Bruce Bowen. You're going to see Tayshaun Prince because they were on the best defensive teams in an era where all the defensive ratings were different. We can't compare 2020 defensive ratings or 2015 defensive ratings to 1992 defensive ratings and then say that's proof. That doesn't make that's just stupid. So that doesn't make sense. And then opponent defensive field goal percentage didn't even exist when MJ played. So please tell me how Ticket got the numbers there. He must have brought a 100-point game too, because those numbers don't exist. So Ticket just had access to things that didn't exist at the time. So credit to him. Now, if we want to talk about steals, yeah, MJ led the league in steals a few times. So did Allen Iverson. Steph Curry led the league in steals. Leading the league in steals isn't proof that you're an elite defender. So when I ask for the numbers, we need numbers that actually prove you're an elite defender. Leading the league in steals isn't proof you're an elite defender. Defensive rating isn't proof you're an elite defender, especially when you compare across eras. An opponent defensive field goal percentage didn't exist. So I'll ask again.
So that's why I went to the that's why I went to the stat of that his teams were repeatedly one of the best defensive teams in the league. He was a big part of that because he was first team all defense. Can't take that away from him. Right? Okay. For all those years, he was first team all defense in the NBA. Can't take that away from him because it reflected on his team, his success as well. Also, I gave you the stat that he led the league in steals. Also, I gave you the fact that I think he led the guards and blocks, if I'm not mistaken, Chilltown.
Before Dwayne Wade did it.
If I'm not mistaken.
Before Dwayne Wade.
So all of those other defensive statistics were favoring Michael Jordan as well, Mars. So now, when we look at a guy like Kawhi Leonard, yes, I like Kawhi Leonard. I think Kawhi Leonard is one of the greater players, defensive players in the NBA history in his little short term that he had, like the 3 or 4 year span. But when we talk about Michael Jordan, we talk about his defensive excellence over a 10-year span. His defensive excellence also resulted in 6 NBA championships. That cannot be understated. And we saw his defensive excellence on display in the NBA Finals on multiple occasions. One of the biggest occasions, Chilltown, is when he went and got the steal from Karl Malone. So he went, plucked the ball, got the steal from Karl Malone, came down, hit the jumper, game time. That all was predicated off his defense, his help side defense coming over, stealing the ball. And there's other things Michael Jordan did defensively, though.
joint with